Hello and welcome to this episode of the Business Spotlight. Today we are joined by Russ Goldsmith from Audere Communications. Hiya, Russ.
Hi, Mark. Thank you very much for the invite. Really
Thanks for
appreciate it.
joining us. Pleasure. So, for those of you joining us for the first time, the Business Spotlight is a place for you to find out a little bit more information about business and running businesses, and specifically, and more importantly, today, finding out about Russ's business. And if you're already in business or thinking about getting onto that, entrepreneurship journey, then you are certainly in the right place. So, Russ, if you can just kick things off for us, please, by just letting the audience know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for.
Sure. So, yeah, as I said, appreciate the invite and coming on and sharing a little bit about what we do. So, my company is Audere Communications. We're a content marketing agency purely in the B2B space and purely focusing on video and audio content. So we are a independent agency. We're based in the UK, but we've got clients internationally. So we work with kind of major brands. And some of the work we do, just very quickly, we produce some examples, video case study success stories for companies like SAP, do a little bit of audio production for McDonald's in their head office in Chicago. We're currently running a series of webinars for a fintech client, like a 5 series masterclass webinar program. But probably 85% of what we do, the bulk of what we do is podcasts. And there's two sides to that. We produce podcasts for brand's own channels. I can go into some of those that we do. And then we have our own podcast channel, which is the C-Suite podcast that we've been running for quite some time. So yeah, anything audio video related in terms of content marketing within the B2B space.
Wow, that's amazing. So just to confirm then, Rush, you're the guy normally sitting in my chair and you're the one doing it the other way around
Very
with the
much,
interview.
yeah. And I can tell you that I much prefer asking the questions than answering them. So we'll have to see how this goes. But
Fantastic.
yeah,
Russ, I promise I will take it easy on you. So
be
don't
gentle.
worry. You're in safe hands. You're in safe hands. So, I mean, it's amazing, first and foremost, some of the clientele. I mean, I know we spoke off air and you sort of already have said some of the clientele that you're working with, but what would you say really makes you stand out from anybody else out there doing something similar, Russ?
Uh, I guess what it's possibly our approach to how we use podcasts. So particularly with our C-suite podcast. I mean, as I said, the stuff we do for brand's own channels, some of the examples that we're working with at the moment, we do all of, I don't know if you know Freshfields, the law firm, so we do all of their work globally. We produce a couple of shows for the London Stock Exchange. We're working with Octopus Energy, doing their podcast. But I guess where we differ in terms of what we do with our C-suite podcast is kind of taking a slightly different approach to podcasting in terms of using it very much as a networking tool and a business development tool. So you've still got to create great content, obviously, but brands will partner with us. So, for example, if they've got a story to tell, if they've got a piece of research that they've done, or a new report, new survey, but rather than us doing a straight interview with them about that piece of research, where we like to look at it is to say, well, who is it you're trying to get that in front of? Why don't we build a panel of experts to sit alongside your spokesperson, but from those businesses that you're trying to reach out to, so that worst case scenario, you've still got a great piece of content, but best case, you've just spent an hour speaking to 2, 3 of the people that you're actually trying to reach with that content. And then if you take that kind of thought process and times it by kind of 10 or 20 in terms of the networking side, we record a lot of our podcasts at events where our clients are sponsoring and exhibiting, so they've got their exhibition booth. But quite often the challenge at a place like that is to try and get the right people to your booth that you're trying to meet.
Yeah.
Quite often the keynote speakers come in and do their talk and disappear to the speaker lounge, or the senior execs have got all their meetings lined up ahead of time. So we'll work with them to say, right, let's record the podcast on your booth, but who is it that you want to meet? And we'll invite them to come and do an interview with us on your booth for, for the podcast, so
Yeah.
that you're actually, again, using the podcast as a way of reaching out to the right people that you want to meet. So again, still creating some great content, but then we hand those guests over to the sales teams on those booths for them to pick up the conversations with. So I guess these days anyone can create a podcast, although obviously it's what we do for a living. So hopefully there's a little bit more than, just shoving a mic in front of two people or three people and getting them to chat.
Yeah.
But I think it's at that point where you're thinking of using a podcast, that I suppose our point of difference is to say, right, well, what is it that you're trying to achieve with this, and how can we use it to align with those business objectives, whatever that they might be. And you tend to find that a lot of the content that we create with the brands that we're working with, not just on our C-Suite podcast, but on their own channels, it's the ROI discussion is not just purely on, oh, how many people had a listen to it. It's more about how did that podcast drive whatever that objective might be, whether it is new business opportunities, and or it could be, as I said, with SAP, it's a lot of partner marketing. With the stuff we do with Merck, it's reaching healthcare professionals. It's so it's quite niche content. So it's more about how is that aligning to whatever those business objectives might be using that content.
Wow, yeah. I mean, that's some really niche sort of techniques that you've got there, and I'm loving the idea of the events and the exhibitions and sort of doing the podcasts on the actual stands. I mean, that's fantastic. That's brilliant, pure brilliance.
Yeah, it ticks a number of boxes actually, because obviously, as I said, it's driving the right people that you want to meet, but actually at the event itself, it creates quite a point of difference, because when you're there recording the content on the booth, and obviously you've got all these high profile people coming to your booth, they often come with their entourage as well. So it creates this buzz and excitement because you've got the cameras and the microphones and the lights and all these senior people coming to talk to you. So that therefore creates a buzz there. Then obviously you can take loads of photos, which you're sharing live through the event. Then you've got all the content that you created afterwards, and then all those clips that are generated, aside from all obviously the business opportunities that you're setting up by having those people come to meet you.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely amazing. Now that must be just I used to work in the event industry. We did speak about that briefly, and I just think that that's such a cool idea. So yeah, well done on that. So Russ, just take us sort of back to the beginning then, the reasoning behind why you decided to set the business up, and do a bit of a, I don't know, a whistle stop tour as to sort of the journey so far, and bring us up to date where you are now with it all.
Oh God. So Audere's been going about just over 10 years, 10 and a half years. So my background is I actually worked for 17, 18 years in a broadcast comms agency, probably the biggest one here in the UK. And they're still going very strong. But I left there, 10 and a half years ago. So that business was about working with brands, getting them interviewed on TV, on radio, but also very early days of online PR. And I was looking after all the digital and social side of things, creating content for distribution online, very, very early days of live streaming through social media. Well, before social media was a thing, actually. And very, very early days of podcasts, actually. We were producing podcasts for brands before anyone was kind of listening to them. But I left that business 10 and a half years ago to initially do kind of consultancy. And I was using podcasts as a way of meeting people.
Yeah.
So I was recording my C-Suite podcast at events and what have you, and actually had a conversation with a friend who is a business coach. So you're like this. This is a good endorsement for the kind of thing that you do for a living. And she can never stop going into coaching mode. And we were having the conversation about what I was doing. And actually she said, you've got your business the wrong way around, because the bit that people like is the podcasts. That's, you should, and she was saying, because you're good at it or whatever. And she said, you should be offering that. And what was happening is I was recording the show at various different events, because I was consulting for another company at the time. And I was, as I said, using the business as a way of meeting the right people. And then event organizers or other brands were saying, can you come and do this for us? And, I heard the podcast, it was really good. And it was a case of, yeah, I can, but you'd have to pay. And it was like, okay, well, what would that be? And it kind of went from there. And so having that conversation with a coach to kind of look at the business slightly differently. And then, so started doing it as a kind of partnership with other brands for the C-Suite podcast, and then started picking up work to do brands' own podcasting. And actually, what was the catalyst for the growth, I guess, in a bizarre way, was lockdown. Because at the time, the event industry came to a close, obviously, and videos was quite hard for brands to create because of all the, restrictions.
Yeah.
But what you could do was jump online and record a podcast, remotely. And so we started doing that for more and more clients. And obviously, when you're recording remotely, you can bring guests in from anywhere across the world. And so we started doing more and more work for SAP, and then SAP introduced us to AWS and Accenture, and we started doing a bit of more work for them. And it kind of grew from there. And the one thing we've been fortunate in terms of the way I've grown the business is it's grown quite organically, because quite often we would have a guest on a podcast for another client that we're working with, and they've come back to us and said, we really enjoyed that. Can you do that? Help us do ours. And that's how we ended up working with the likes of Octopus Energy, Merck, McDonald's, all these different brands that we've kind of met through doing other work for other clients. And so it's kind of grown organically from there. And that's how and then obviously when lockdown finished and the events started happening again, we've kind of pushed more on doing that. So that's how it's kind of grown, really.
Wow, what a journey so far. And I mean, thank you for being so open and sort of bringing us into the world of what you've been doing for the last 10 years. So, I mean, Russ, what does the future hold? I mean, what do you think the future is going to look like for you, your company, and what sort of challenges do you think you're going to have going forward?
Well, challenge obviously is the top line, as any small business owner will know. So yeah, feeding the pipeline is always a big challenge. I guess the one thing that comes up in a lot of the podcasts that we produce is AI. AI is a potential threat. Hopefully not too much of a threat to what I do, but it was interesting actually. I heard someone sent me an example of a company that had done a report, and they'd uploaded it to, and I might have got this completely wrong. I think it was either Google's LLM tool, or it might be a different one. I honestly can't remember. But basically, there's this like however many page report uploaded to this AI tool, and like press make a podcast, and 2 minutes later, you've got two people chatting about this report that sound totally genuine, having just a conversation about the findings in this report, and it is really, really scary.
Yeah.
So you've got things like that. This is obviously a threat. Like I said, hopefully we do a little bit more, because what we're doing is bringing people together to use the podcast in a different way than just taking a report and analyzing it and popping out a podcast. But it was genuinely scary, because you wouldn't know, none of it is real, kind of thing.
Yeah.
But then obviously, yeah, with podcasting, anyone, as I said, we'll compete with bigger agencies than us, and then freelance and people doing it themselves. And so I guess making sure that we've got diversification in terms of what we offer, which is why we were quite keen to push other things like managing the webinars, which was a natural extension of what we do. Because again, it's just audio and video. The work we did for a client recently had 100 people logged on, 10 plus speakers. We were recording it online, and then it was a mix of slides and videos and live polls, and we did an online prize draw and that. But then we did an on-demand edit of that and cut all the clips for social media as well. So it's quite a natural extension from when we're recording a podcast remotely to manage something like that. So again, just making sure that people don't just see us as a podcast producer, and we're offering other things. But yeah, I guess the biggest challenge is always feeding that pipeline.
Yeah. I think that's always one of the top three when I talk to people about what challenges they think they might face going forward. But I think you're right, and AI has come up quite a lot in a lot of the conversations that I've had as well, Russ. So I'm a firm believer. I like to embrace these sort of elements, but equally we need to be mindful that, you know, some of it is a bit sort of mystifying when you hear some of these things and how cool that they can come across. I
Yeah.
watched, I think it was a video that one of my peers, who's a chap called Michael Heppel, did like a video of someone phoning him on his phone, and they'd done an AI for Michael Heppel coaching you online, but through your mobile. And he said the advice that it had given, but not only the advice, but also the fact that it sounded genuinely like him. So
Yeah.
yeah, it's quite mind blowing, some of the
It
stuff that they're doing with AI now.
it is very, very scary. I mean, like you say, we do embrace it. We use it in parts. You know, sometimes if we're struggling for a good title of a podcast, we'll go into Chat GPT and ask for some suggestions. And not surprisingly, well, surprisingly or not surprisingly, sometimes when you look at the stats, those ones that with the title generated by AI have done better than the ones that we've come up with. So that is a bit of concern. But again, we're using it and we're embracing the tool. Um, you know, there's another tool out there I was looking at where because someone made an error on a podcast, they said the wrong statistic, and they said, "Oh, can't you just make me say the right thing?" And of course, there is a tool out there that you can clone someone's voice and get them to, like you said, with that, just redo that sentence. So it's a little bit concerning, but yeah, it's hopefully because because we're using podcasts in a slightly different way in terms of bringing people together physically and well and remotely, but you know using the podcast to drive opportunities and not just recreating existing content like I said that report did. Hopefully it won't affect us too much.
No, exactly that, exactly that. So yeah, let's see what that happens in the future with AI. So Russ, I mean, moving on to yourself then as the business owner, what would you say would be something, a real standout lesson that you've learned from running the business, say, over the last 10 years?
I'd say there's probably two things actually. I would say so when I first left, so anyone setting up a business, I don't know if they've ever been through this, but when I first left my previous business, obviously you've got loads of existing contacts and clients, and everyone was very quick to say, "Hey Russ, we must catch, good luck on your new, venture. We must get together for a coffee and have a catch up." And of course, the first, when you on day one when you're launching your new business, you're sitting in with your very empty diary and you're thinking, I really need to fill this with as many meetings as possible. But what I very quickly found was that lots of those meetings were because when you're going to meet these people who are in a job, their time is being paid for, whereas obviously yours isn't. Now that you're working for yourself, you've got to generate that revenue. And I'd go into London and sit down and have a coffee, and you spend an hour with them, and it's not long before they're like, actually, now I've got you here, I just want to pick your brains a second. Because I'm thinking of doing, and before you know it, that catch up is now free consultancy. And 9 times out of 10, you end up picking up the bill as well, for the for the pleasure of it. So one tip I would give is that just make sure those meetings have got an agenda, like what the meeting is about before, rather than just let's have a catch up.
Yeah.
So I certainly learned that lesson very quickly. And then I would say as you grow and moving forward is just stay focused. And I think social media can be a big distraction. Yes, obviously I mean, LinkedIn is a really important channel for us, and I do use it and post a lot. But I'm also a member of various different networking groups, whether it's on LinkedIn or WhatsApp and what have you. And I see some people just constantly posting
Yeah.
content. And I know there's an important thing about building your own personal brand, because people buy people and all that kind of stuff. But I do sit there and sometimes wonder, if I was one of their clients, you're not actually doing any work for me because you just seem to be. Now, whether or not all of that is AI generated, I don't know. But yeah, I would say just remain focused on, because you can very easily get distracted and go down rabbit holes, as you know, like with social media, and lose track of what you got to do. It's hard enough, generating business and keeping it at the best of times. So If you
Yeah.
start getting distracted by other stuff, I would say that that would be my other tip.
Yeah. No, that's some real good advice there. And I think, you're right. It's focus and clarity, and maintaining that focus is paramount, especially
Mm.
as your business grows and you get busier as an individual and as a business, is to maintaining that focus. So that's a great share. Thank you very much for that, Russ. So on that note, then, I mean, humor me if you will. We're gonna go back in time now, Russ. If we were able to, that is. And we're gonna go back and we're gonna visit an 18-year-old Russ.
Right. Okay.
Now you get to give yourself one piece of advice, one golden nugget. What would it be?
Probably spend a bit more time revising for your A levels. That would have been 17, wouldn't it? 18. Just don't don't be pressurized into doing something you know don't want to do. You've got. I mean, I'm 57 now, so we're talking 40 years ago, and I've been working all that time. I actually worked for 5 years before I went back to uni as a mature student because I didn't revise properly for my A levels. Um, and I've had a few different career changes, and I think at that age, you know, whether you're going to study something at uni, just unless obviously you're studying to become a doctor or whatever, just pick something that you enjoy, because you know university life is more about the lessons in life, I would say, more than anything. I mean, I did a business degree, and I don't know how much of that degree I use in running a business. I've learned more in running the business than I did in four
Yeah.
years at uni. um so just, yeah, sort of like, don't be worried about, take your time, choose something that you want to do and enjoy. And I would say go travel as well. See the world if you can, and if you can afford it, or if you have to work your way around to do it, because you've got 40, 50 years of work ahead of you. You know what I mean? So just enjoy that time while you can, is what I would say.
Yeah. No, that sounds like some pretty sound advice. So if only we had that time machine, eh?
Yeah, I know.
So, Russ, I mean, we've spoken a couple of times now, and you're very passionate about what you do. And, one of the key things I always like to find out is, what is that driving factor? What is it that fires you up, that really inspires you to do what you do day in, day out?
I think I am lucky and fortunate that I'm doing something that I love. And it took a while to, as I said, I've had various different like career changes and stuff. But I think, yeah, I think I'll tell you a funny story from my previous business, in terms of, because I actually, on my LinkedIn profile, I'm kind of like enjoying the best part of my career at the moment, because I love what I do. I've got a great team that I work with. We're a totally remote business, so I am in Hertfordshire. I'm in Welwyn Garden City, but we've got one in sort of Shropshire, one in Oxfordshire, one down in Kent. We're all over the place. And but actually, even though we work remotely, I am probably doing. I think I've got the most efficient team, and we're out. Our output is better than I've ever had before in all my previous years of work. So I'm a big advocate of remote work where you can get it. I think that makes a big difference in terms of. I mean, I'm at obviously a different stage in life and career in term, but not having to waste an hour and a bit, commuting into London and whatever. And
Yeah.
so, sort of like work-life balance is a lot better. But I would say, the fact that the people that we work with, the clients that we have, getting to choose the clients that we want to work with and it has made a real difference. And the story I'll tell you is that, and this was kind of like almost helped me in my decision of why I left my last place. Not the only thing, but
Yeah.
there was one Friday afternoon, we were doing the PR for, and I hope no one listening was involved in this, doing the PR for Hovis. Okay, so we were doing a campaign for Hovis. Because they had, and we were working with the PR agency, and we had a celebrity spokesperson in our studio doing back-to-back interviews on radio, BBC and commercial radio, because Hovis had done a piece of research. This is the kind of stuff that we used to do, on what Britons love to squeeze. Because when you go shopping and you buy your loaf of bread and you go down the supermarket aisle and you pick up, you squeeze the loaf to see how fresh it is.
Yep.
So in the classic crappy PR way, they'd done this piece of research on what Britons love to squeeze. So you would hear it on joining me in the studio now, or whatever the presenter would say is Z-list celebrity commenting on this piece of research by Hovis. So that's how they get their brand into the story. As it happens, it was a Friday session. We were sat in the studio, and we'd actually had a really good session. So our media team had managed to book, like, I don't know, 15, 20 interviews with loads of different radio stations up and down the country. And we'd had a really, really good session, plenty of branding on air for the client. And we got to the end of the session, and I'm sat there in the studio with the client, with the spokesperson, the celebrity, and the PR person. PR girl was sat there. And I said, that was really good. We had a great session. We'd been there from, like, I don't know, 7 o'clock in the morning till 2 in the afternoon doing all these interviews. And she turned around to me and she said, actually, I'm a bit disappointed, Russell. So I was like, really? Why is that? And she said, we were really hoping for the Today program. And I was like, sorry, you really think, so this was in the days of John Humphrys present. I said, you really think John Humphrys is going to want to do an interview about what Britons love to squeeze at 6:30 in the morning on a political, I just thought at that point, there's got to be something better in life than doing this. And off the back of that, just to finish this rather long story, sorry. When I was doing a piece of, I had a podcast, this is going back about 7 years, but I had Microsoft partnered with my C-Suite podcast, and we were recording at an event, and I had it was their head of innovation at their research center in Cambridge, and she'd done she'd led this project, the most amazing project, where they'd created this kind of watch strap that vibrated and supported people with Parkinson's. So what it does is you could control it with an app, and the vibration would distract the brain and enable to stop the shaking and things like this. Absolutely amazing. At the end of the interview, I said to her, I really wish I had a job like you where you're making a difference, And she actually said to me, yeah, but you're helping me tell my story and reach more people. And that kind of like, I thought that's so sweet of her. But actually at that point, I was like, yeah, as long as I'm helping tell decent stories and not about what Britons love to squeeze and focusing on things like that. So yeah, I'm not trying to say, we're all, more than worthy and all that kind of stuff, but it's just nice to be able to work on projects where you think, yeah, this is making a difference to the world a little bit more than what I was doing previously.
Yeah, no,
So
I like that.
So a very, very long answer to kind of what inspires you, and that's what I enjoy doing, basically.
Yeah, no, I like that. That's another great share. Thank you, Russ. So, I mean, just to wrap things up then, I mean, people are going to want to find out more about you, about your business, Russ. So if they're going to do that, what's going to be the best way? I mean, the best website and other ways to get hold of you and to speak to you about what we've been talking about today and anything else that they might find of interest.
Yeah, love to. Thank you. So auderecommunications.com is the website address. So it's AUDERE communications.com. So yeah, there's more information on there. Probably best place to get hold of me is LinkedIn. So Russell Goldsmith is SSLL, Russell Goldsmith. Find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, just drop us a line, and if you're interested in listening to the C-Suite podcast, it's you can find that on all your usual podcast channels and YouTube. So yeah, give that a listen as well if interested.
Fantastic. Russ, thank you so much for joining us on the Business Spotlight today.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Yeah, me too. And anyone listening, thank you very much for joining us. That is a wrap. So that is the Business Spotlight. We will see you all again and hear from you all again very soon. Take care. Bye for now.